Welcome to the Dr. Janine Show. I'm Dr. Janine Bowring, naturopathic doctor, and today I'm talking about headaches, different types of headaches, some of the causes, and of course, my natural tips. Stay tuned for the entire show because I'll be talking about tension headaches, cluster headaches, sinus headaches, and some other types of headaches that you may not be aware of as a cause and effect in terms of having chronic head pain. So if you're new to my channel, welcome in. I hope that you'll subscribe and turn on those post notifications by clicking that bell. I welcome your comments and questions throughout the show, so make sure that you drop them in the comment section below. And I appreciate all the love you can give me. A big thumbs up is always fantastic, and sharing this video with your friends definitely is important as well. So here are 9 headache hacks for tension headaches. So if you suffer from tension headaches, you know exactly what and how these feel for you. A lot of people have that tension, of course, at the back of the neck. It can radiate to different parts of the head, of course, and can often be brought on by stress. So tip number 1 is to use ice packs, but you may also want to use heat. So depending on your constitution, I used to always ask my patients, okay, what is going to feel better for you? If it's going to be ice, then you use the ice pack. If it's going to be, a hot pack to make you feel soothed and more comfortable, then use a hot pack. So you can't really do this wrong, but using either hot or cold can really have these amazing effects for tension headaches. Tip number 2 is to do a full body detox. So especially focusing in on the liver. Often if you're getting those headaches in the trapezius muscles, this is a reflex area of your liver health. So if you've got liver toxicity, maybe you've not done a full body detox in a while, addressing the liver toxins as well. And there are specific herbal medicines, of course, that do that. And I share that information in other videos, so make sure you check it out. But doing that full body detox is great. And this is one of those things that you can do if you get chronic tension headaches to alleviate the headaches for good by getting rid of that internal toxicity as it's related to the liver, as it's related to that trapezius muscle. Tip number 3 is to get regular massage, maybe chiropractic appointments as well. There has a lot to do with what's going on with positioning of course, your fascia as well as your musculature. And if there's a lot of toxins that have built up, a lot of pressure in that musculature, and you tend to be very stressed out, a massage can really do wonders to work out that tension from the muscles. Now, chiropractic appointments are fantastic as well to make sure that you're maintaining that good alignment in your spine, and this affects your nervous system as well. So great for those tension headaches. Tip number 4 is to really avoid that tech neck. So you know what that means in terms of being on your devices. So whether that's your cell phone, checking your messages, your, social media accounts, having that poor neck posture can really be a causative factor for those tension headaches. So make sure that you're stacking your head on top of your spine. If you do yoga, then this is fantastic. You've already learned this, but there are a ton of videos available, of course, online to help you to find that perfect posture, especially for your head, so that you're taking and alleviating some of that stress on these muscles, especially in the head and neck. Tip number 5 is to use some essential oils. I've got a couple of my favorites here. Peppermint is fantastic. Eucalyptus as well, which contains menthol. And this is great because these essential oils have a cooling effect. So I find, if I've got that tension, applying a few drops of, and sometimes in combination of the peppermint, the eucalyptus, I love lavender as well, and applying that at the back of the neck and maybe on some of those spots where you do feel some of that tension in the head, this can be fantastic for those tension headaches as well. Tip number 6 is to use the blue light blocking glasses. Now we have a lot of artificial light exposure in our modern world, and in terms of that having negative impacts on our brain and our nerve function, really important for our circadian rhythms, having proper sleep, but this can stress out our brain as well, and that can be related to the tension headache. So really doing your best, especially if you're on screens all day, important for the children as well, to get the blue blocking glasses so that you're blocking that blue, that artificial light, that blue light, especially in that wavelength spectrum, usually in the 400s of nanometers. That is, not something that you want your body to be inundated with. We have that naturally from the sun first thing in the morning, but too much of it during the day from all the artificial lights in our environment is definitely a factor and can be causing your tension headaches. Tip number 7 is to make sure that you're properly hydrated. So this is especially important in different temperatures. So if you're in a hot climate, usually you have the thirst mechanism that kicks in. You're going to make sure that you're drinking enough, but a lot of people don't. So make sure you're hydrating enough with enough water and good quality water. Now, if you're in a colder temperature, then sometimes it's a challenge to get enough hydration, because you don't necessarily always feel like drinking water. So drinking a lot of herbal teas can be a great way to ensure that you're getting enough hydration, especially if you suffer from those tension headaches. Tip number 8 is to do some deep breathing, meditation, just calming your nervous system down when you are, of course, in between headaches, because this is the best time that you're going to get the best bang for your buck in terms of being able to, it's harder when you're in a crisis mode and an acute situation of having a headache, but it's a reminder that maybe you didn't do enough deep breathing and meditation, and that's one of the reasons why you actually manifested the headache. So I have a number of great other videos with very relaxing sounds and binaural beats to be able to just relax your nervous system. Use that as an advantage, in your meditation to be able to calm down your nervous system, and this will help your headaches as well. And tip number 9 is always that mind-body connection. So making sure that you're reducing your stress and watch your self-negative talk. So a lot of self-criticism can often be associated with developing tension headaches, so that may be something to consider as well. And just listen to the way that you talk to yourself and try to turn that into the more positive as much as you can. Now I'm moving on to cluster headaches. So what are cluster headaches? Well, we know that the pain from cluster headaches is caused by the dilation or widening of the blood vessels that supply blood to the brain and to the face as well. And this dilation applies pressure to the trigeminal nerve, and that then can transmit sensations from the face to the brain. Now, researchers have found that abnormalities in the hypothalamus, which is a small area in the brain that regulates, of course, our body temperature, our blood pressure, our sleep, and the release of certain hormones, may be responsible in part for cluster headaches as well. It can also be caused by a sudden release of chemicals like histamine, which, of course, when you're having an allergic reaction, our histamine response is exaggerated, as well as serotonin, which can regulate our mood. Now, cluster headaches, if you have suffered from them, often there is pain and burning sensations, usually around one of the eyes, and they are called cluster headaches because they happen in clusters. So you could have 1 to 4 of these cluster headaches happening per day. Now, it's interesting to note that cluster headaches are actually more common in men, and researchers have found that this may be correlated with low testosterone levels in men, and also excitotoxins. So things like MSG, which is a flavor enhancer in food, aspartame, these are called excitotoxins, meaning that they cause an overexuberance of the functioning and firing of the neurons in the brain, and this can be related to this type of headache. Now, some people find that the cluster headaches are worse at the change of season, so that correlation again with circadian rhythms and not being grounded, EMF exposure is part and parcel with this as well. But now I have 9 great tips to relieve cluster headaches naturally, and of course without medication. These are all natural things that you can do if you suffer from cluster headaches. And if you do, I'd love to hear from you, so make sure you drop a comment in the comment section below. Tip number 1 is magnesium. So a lot of people, if you don't yet know it, you probably have a magnesium deficiency unless you're actively doing something to take your magnesium every single day. Most of us do have a magnesium deficiency. So I've got other shows all about magnesium. Check those out. But making sure that you're getting a good absorbable, high quality, containing no fillers magnesium supplement is really, really important. So I promise we'll put some links at the bottom of this video so that you can get your hands on, a great way to get in your good magnesium. Tip number 2 is to use cold compresses for your cluster headaches. So usually around the area of the eyes will be very helpful, and this is a great thing that you can do. It doesn't cost anything, so just get those ice packs ready, and this will help with the cluster headaches. Tip number 3 is to inhale apple cider vinegar steam. So you're just going to put about a half a cup of apple cider vinegar in a big pot of boiling water, or boiled water, so that it's steaming, and you're going to cover your head and inhale that. So that is an old, ancient herbal remedy to be able to deal with cluster headaches, and that steam really has a wonderful effect on that trigeminal nerve, and the inhalation of the apple cider vinegar has a great natural effect on, relieving some of that tension in the nerves and, of course, that brain connection. Tip number 4 is to use sandalwood essential oil. And this is something, if you can find the sandalwood essential oil, put a few drops on the forehead. And this is fantastic. It's very soothing to the nervous system. The smell is wonderful, very calming to the system, and will help to decrease that hypersensitivity in the nervous system as well, as it's related to the cluster headaches. Tip number 5 is to use cold tea bags right on your eyes. So what I like to do is brew the tea bags in just a small amount of water, so hot water, and you can either use, regular orange pekoe, so black tea, or you could use chamomile tea, is very soothing as well. And just brew them in just a little, like a half a cup of hot water in a mug. And then you're going to remove the tea bags, allow for the moisture to stay in there as much as possible, and then you can either put them on a little plate in the fridge, or even in the freezer is very nice as well. And then you can use that right on the eyes, and especially for that pain around the eye with a cluster headache, this is really, really soothing. And leave it on for about 15 to 20 minutes. So lie down and just relax. You will love the effects of that. Tip number 6 is to make sure that you do grounding and limit your non-native EMF exposure. So non-native EMFs are EMFs, of course, from our cell phone towers, Wi-Fi routers, all of that electromagnetism in our environment that's not natural can have a negative effect, especially on our nervous system and our brain function. So you want to limit your EMF exposure, get grounded, bare feet on the earth, really important for those cluster headaches. Tip number 7 is to fix your leptin resistance. So this is very much related to your hormones. There's something called pregnenolone steal, when in times with this leptin resistance, chronic inflammation in your body, your hormones get out of whack. And pregnenolone is supposed to be something that is a precursor to our testosterone, and in men, of course, as well. But when you have this entire inflammatory process happening and your leptin signaling is not happening as it should, now your pregnenolone is going to get used up for cortisol, for your stress hormone, instead of for your testosterone and your other estrogen and progesterone hormones. So that can be a big problem. And that's why, fixing that leptin resistance, I've got other videos on leptin resistance. Very, very important that you fix that, especially if you have low testosterone. And tip number 8 is to avoid the excitotoxins. So things like MSG, the food enhancing properties of MSG do not outweigh the fact that this is an excitotoxin, meaning that it makes your brain function, your brain cells over function, and it sort of hot wires your brain cells, and they're like totally over exuberant. So that's not what you want, and that's what MSG can do, and that's one of the dangers of it, and that can excite that cluster headache as well. So avoid MSG. And tip number 9, of course, is the mind-body connection. And you have to think about, with cluster headaches, what is it that you're seeing that you don't want to see? So anything related to the eyes, what are you seeing that you don't want to see in your life? And I'm saying this figuratively, not just necessarily what's in your physical world. So think about that a little bit as it's related to your cluster headaches. And once you let that go and have some healing and resolve around that, maybe, just maybe, and I've seen it happen before, the cluster headaches will completely disappear. Okay, let's move on now to caffeine withdrawal headaches. Okay, so who's with me here? Have you ever had a caffeine withdrawal headache? And this can be caused from too much caffeine or, of course, too little caffeine. So if you have a daily habit of having your caffeine at a certain time of day, and then for whatever reason, you are not on that regular schedule with your caffeine, you may experience a headache, and that's the withdrawal effect of the caffeine. And we know that caffeine has benefits, of course, for fat burning, for cognition. Caffeine's not always the worst thing, but your timing and your consistency with consuming your caffeine and the type of caffeine, of course, that you are ingesting is very important. So I've got some tips for you for that caffeine withdrawal headache. One of them, especially if you have too much caffeine in your diet, we won't talk about that today, but if you're trying to wean off, so if you're having too much caffeine in your daily diet, you're trying to get off of coffee or tea or whatever it is, you have to do this slowly. So the way that I did this with my patients always is to decrease by about a half a cup per week. So for example, if I have 3 cups of coffee a day, have done that every day for, months, years, 3 cups a day is my standard dosage. And now I want to bring it down eventually maybe to 1 cup a day. So in my first week, I'm going to have 2.5 cups every day of coffee, not the 3, 2.5, because I brought it down just a half a cup for that week. Then the next week, I'm going to bring it down by another half a cup. So now I'm at 2 cups every day. You see where I'm getting at? So just a half a cup decrease of that caffeine or caffeine product per week is the best way to slowly wean yourself off of that caffeine. And you can eventually get off it completely if that's what your goal is. But again, there are some great benefits of caffeine. So yeah, I'll leave that up to you. If you have questions or comments about caffeine, I'd love to hear from you. Drop it in the comment section below. And you also have to be consistent with the timing of your caffeine consumption. So if you have your coffee every morning, 9 a.m., then if you go off that schedule because of your circadian rhythms, and depending on how connected you are with the earth, this, even just a 1 or 2 hour change, bumping up or bumping back that caffeine consumption can really cause those headaches as well. And of course, find other ways to increase your energy. So you shouldn't have to be hooked on caffeine to give you energy. You could investigate a B12 deficiency, which is our energy vitamin, maybe an iron deficiency. Maybe that's why you're tired and you need a lot of caffeine. Also, healthy fats can help to sustain your energy. So you maybe have to look a little bit deeper if you are actually addicted to caffeine for its uplifting and energetic effects. And of course, one little hack that I do is if I can't have a coffee myself, I actually have a product that I take, which is a fat burning product, and it has some natural green tea caffeine. So it's got the EGCG from the green tea, but it also has a little bit of caffeine from the green tea. So that's my little hack on the road, on the run. If I can't grab a coffee or I don't feel like a coffee and my timing is messed up, I'll just have one of my capsules of my fat burner, and I have the added benefit of burning some extra body fat as I take that. So I promise we'll put the links to that product down below so that, if you need that little hack as well, that will help you. If you're just tuning in, welcome. I'm Dr. Janine. We're talking about headaches today. I'm going through different types of headaches and some of the causes and the tips. We're streaming live on YouTube and on Facebook, and of course sharing, some natural things to do about these different types of headaches. So let's get into now 5 natural tips for relieving the keto headache. So if you've ever gone off of carbs, you've gone towards a lower carb diet, when you go into ketosis, we know that your body is now in a lower insulin state. And depending on where we're starting from, so if you had a lot of sugars and things, and now you're getting into a lower insulin state, now you have less sodium absorption in your kidneys, and this can really cause headaches. So it's something to be aware of. And some of my tips to help with this type of headache, if it is the keto flu type of headache, is to make sure that you've really balanced your electrolytes well. So this means your sodium, so your salt intake, magnesium as well, and your potassium. So I've got actually a recipe for an electrolyte drink. I want you to check that out. It's in another video. Fantastic. It's a natural way to ensure that you're balancing your electrolytes, especially if you've come off of your carbohydrate consumption. Tip number 2 is to make sure that you are well hydrated. So part of, changing the diet radically is that you can get into a dehydration state and you're maybe not thinking as much of drinking that water. So making sure that, especially if you're eating more protein and some healthier fats, the more keto type of or carnivore type of lifestyle, you definitely need to ensure that you're getting enough hydration and water in that type of situation as well. And this will help those headaches. Tip number 3 is to make sure that you do this gradually. So if you're going from eating a lot of carbs, which I did recently on vacation, eating a ton of carbs and then just going cold turkey to off carbs and going keto, it's a little bit drastic for your body. So you want to, take it easy with yourself, make those dietary changes, kind of ease into it versus going to cold turkey. Hey, if you can deal with the headaches and you're okay with that, then so be it. But you may want to kind of ease your way off of the carbohydrates as well. Tip number 4 is to encourage your own ketosis, not just by the dietary aspects, but by exercise as well. You may try fasting, intermittent fasting, 1 meal a day. These are other ways to get into ketosis without having to radically change the carbohydrate intake and going completely off of the carbohydrates. So that's something else to consider, especially if you are getting those keto headaches and with the withdrawal headaches from those carbohydrates and the sugars. And tip number 5 is to do a regular detoxification and a parasite cleansing protocol. You know that if you follow me, you know that I talk a lot about getting rid of those less healthy organisms, of course, the parasites, the intestinal worms, the candida. There is something called the Herxheimer reaction, which is kind of like the keto flu. When you stop feeding the candida, then you have this reaction, the Herxheimer reaction, and it's basically the same thing. It's like the keto flu, and now, a lot of those toxins are being liberated from that candida, and your candida is dying off. It's not happy, and that's when you can get the headaches and the flu-like symptoms. So you want to, again, in terms of being able to kill off the candida, do a great parasite protocol to be able to kill off the candida without having so many of those side effects as you're supporting your body with that detox mechanism. So we have a whole, parasite protocol that we can share with you. So make sure you check below for the links for that. Okay, let's move on now with 7 tips to relieve exertion headaches naturally. So have you ever had this? And this is something that I've actually, gone through and have had to find resolution for myself. So doing hot yoga classes, I didn't realize the intensity plus the heat on top of that, and all of that increased blood flow to my head was crazy. And I love yoga. I love hot yoga. I love the benefits of this, but that intense heat plus the exertion all at the same time, I used to get these horrible, horrible headaches towards the end of the yoga class, and then it would last, into the next day. So I had to do my own investigation and, find my own tips that really helped with these exertion headaches. So my first tip is, of course, to pace yourself. So unfortunately, my personality is when I go, and it's difficult for me to do that. So I've had to learn that for myself, just to pace yourself. You don't have to go all out and kill yourself, in a yoga class. So pace yourself. And maybe that is, on the mental, emotional level, like it is for me, or maybe it is more on the physical level, but just pace yourself in terms of your exercise, in terms of your exertion. Tip number 2 is make sure that you're properly hydrated. So both before that exertion is going to happen, this is why elite athletes, they really, increase their hydration before their events or their matches. And then of course during, and then of course after, especially if there's a lot of perspiration involved, you have to make sure that you maintain your proper hydration and your electrolytes as well. So that's important. Check out my electrolyte drink that I mentioned earlier. Tip number 3 is to use ice packs and use it on the carotids. So of course the carotids will feed the head and neck with that blood flow. So if you use cooling, so I used to actually bring an ice pack. I used to have to explain to the yoga instructor, okay, I get these headaches, I'm going to bring my ice pack. And, towards the end of class, when we were in Shavasana and relaxing, I would have to put the ice pack on, and I would usually put it on my right side, but if you can do it on both sides bilaterally, it's great. And I would put it sort of on the back and towards the front of my neck to cool my carotids, to cool the blood going up to my brain. It really did have a dramatic dramatic effect and really help the headache so that I wouldn't get them. So that was fantastic. So I want you to try that because it's a fantastic tip. Tip number 4 is to make sure that you have enough magnesium. So magnesium, we know, really helps with headaches. A lot of people are very deficient in magnesium, which I've talked about earlier today. So I have other shows all about magnesium deficiency. So make sure that you're upping your magnesium. Tip number 5 is to use peppermint essential oil. So it's one of my favorites. Again, using it on those areas where you feel the pain. I like it on the back of the neck, but I like it on my around my forehead, on my temples as well. Now if you are using it on the temples, just make sure it doesn't get in your eye. I've done that before too. Not so pleasant, so wash your hands after, especially if you're going to be touching your face. But that is great in terms of helping with the exertion headaches as well. And tip number 6 is when you are exercising, make sure that you're outside. So exercising outside in fresh air is best. And tip number 7 is do that deep breathing. So ensuring that proper oxygenation through that deep breathing is fantastic for those exertion headaches. Now let's move on to rebound headaches. So is your painkiller that you're taking for your headaches giving you headaches? This is a big question. It's not something that a lot of people think about. So let's say you get chronic headaches, whether it's migraines, tension headaches, cluster headaches. You take either your acetaminophen, your ibuprofen, your aspirin. It could be naproxen, which of course is heavy duty and it's a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory for pain, maybe headaches, cramps and things. And you take this chronically, and then when you're not taking it, are you getting a rebound headache from not taking one of those medications or pharmaceuticals? Well, the answer is it could possibly be, and that's one of the dangers of chronically taking some of these non-natural substances if you have chronic pain and headaches. So tip number 1 is to determine right from the get-go, why are you getting headaches in the first place? And what type of headache is it? So is it because of an iron deficiency? Is it because of a magnesium deficiency? Is it because of your EMF exposure? Is it because you're not grounded? Is it because of your stress? I mean, really determining why you're getting the headaches in the first place will go a long way at alleviating, the reason why you're getting them, because you have to be aware of what that reason is. So think about that. Tip number 2 is to do a full body detox, determining your toxicity. Certainly if you've taken a lot of medications over the years for your headaches, that toxicity is built up. We know that pharmaceuticals need to be detoxed through the liver, through the kidneys. So doing a full body detox is a fantastic way to get rid of the headaches once and for all. So I have other videos on how to do full body detox. It's very easy. It's gentle on you. So make sure you check out those videos. Tip number 3 is to evaluate your EMF toxicity. So please check out my shows on EMF, all of, the ways that you can naturally mitigate your risk towards EMF exposure, which of course are electromagnetic fields. If you're just tuning in and you don't know what that is, that's all that radiation in your environment from electronics and things around you. So you definitely want to eliminate that exposure. And there are, tips and tricks as to how to do that in my other shows. So check that out. Tip number 4 is to use other anti-inflammatories and painkillers that are naturally occurring instead of the conventional things that maybe you're taking for your headaches. So I love things like glucosamine, MSM, chondroitin, boswellia, bromelain, turmeric. These are all fantastic anti-inflammatories, natural painkillers that decrease that pain and inflammation. They're natural, they don't have the negative side effects, and they're not habit forming, and they don't have that rebound effect, and you won't get those rebound, headaches from taking these natural substances. And tip number 5 is to increase your hydration. So make sure you're getting in enough water in your daily diet. If it's in the wintertime, make sure it's hot teas, herbal teas. If it's in the summertime, increasing that hydration to, counteract what you're losing in terms of perspiration, as well as something to always think about. Now I'll share 9 natural tips to relieve sinus headaches. So I know we've covered a lot in today's show. We've gone through all different types of headaches. So sinus headaches, if you get them, and hopefully it's not a frequent thing for you, but I've got these great 9 tips to really help. So tip number 1 is to do steam inhalation. So again, you're going to boil some water, put it in a big bowl or a pot, get a towel ready, and put a few drops of eucalyptus eucalyptus essential oil. So you're going to put, I usually use 5 to 10 drops in terms of inhalation, and this is fantastic. So you're going to put that in the water. You're going to cover your head and allow for that steam to, be inhaled in, and take some deep breaths. Stay under that little tent as long as you can, but this is a great way to relieve those sinus headaches. Some other essential oils. So tip number 2 that I love include thieves. I love tea tree oil, pine oil, peppermint oil, rosemary oil. These are all, fantastic for sinus headaches, helping to alleviate that sinus congestion. So try those as well. You can use those in the steam inhalation as well. Tip number 3 is to use acupressure or acupuncture if you have access to someone who can do this for you, but just doing acupressure on your face. So these are the great points. So whether it's urinary bladder 2, which is in the upper sinus, sort of to the midline of your eyebrows. So you can do little circles with your fingers in that region on that acupuncture point. And then there's some more in the lower sinuses here. So stomach 3 is more in the central sinus there. And LI20 is closer to your nose. And even by pressing down, you may even feel some tenderness in those areas, but a great way to alleviate some of that congestion that's happening in those sinuses. Tip number 4 is to avoid sinus infections in general. So if this is something that's happening chronically for you, you definitely want to focus on your immune function. Taking herbal medicines to help to, bolster up your immunity is a really important tool. Tip number 5 is to do regular cleansing. So that's getting rid of those bad organisms. So doing a parasite cleanse / candida cleanse and a full body detox. That's something that I talk about at length in other videos, how to do that. So make sure you check those out. Tip number 6 is to limit your EMF exposure. We know that EMFs definitely can be correlated with our organs and our drainage systems and our lymph system not working appropriately. So making sure that you're eliminating that EMF toxicity is important as well. Tip number 7 is to get rid of that blue light toxicity. So again, wearing the blue light blocking glasses will go a long way to help you, especially if you're getting chronic sinus infections. This has an effect on your immune system as well. Tip number 8 is to avoid certain allergens. And the big category here, I used to always educate my patients and parents of children who had chronic sinus and, ear infections and things, is dairy products. So conventional dairy products, unfortunately, are very mucus forming and can be, very compromising to your immune system if you're having a lot of it. So yeah, limiting your dairy consumption is important. And tip number 9, of course, is that mind-body connection. And sinus problems can be related to an irritation to just one person. So someone close to you, usually, if you're chronically irritated by one person, that can manifest in sinus issues. So today I talked all about headaches, different types, causes, and of course, my best natural tips to help you. I would love to hear from you if you do suffer from chronic headaches or you know somebody. Please make sure you share this video with them. I'd love to hear from you. So please, if you do have a question or comment, please drop it in the comment section below. Be sure to give me a big thumbs up. I hope you learned something new today. And if you're new to my channel, welcome in. I hope that you'll subscribe and turn on those post notifications by clicking that bell. Everyone has a calling in life, and one of mine is to educate you how to live your life in tune and in line with nature. Thanks for watching.